This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, it's now 6:30 and I'll call this regular town council meeting to order. First thing on the agenda is the invocation, and that's with John Schaefer from Discovery Church.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Let us pray. Lord, thank you, God, for our mayor, the town council, the leaders at every level in town, Lord. We thank you for them and what they put into that, Lord. We also thank you, God, for the citizens that are here tonight, Lord, who have taken time to be involved in their local government, God. We ask for these leaders, Lord, tonight that you would give them grace to bring truth, justice, and stability to Surfside Beach. Give them the power to do what is right and always rule in fairness, Lord. And may our community around us know that Surfside is run that way. Lord, tonight we just pray, Lord, for wisdom and discernment for our new lieutenant. God, I'm so thankful for him and his family, God. And also, Lord, from the other side, from the fire department, Lord, we just thank you for Larry Carter, Lord, and his 10 years of service, God. And the same, I ask you just to be with him and his family, Lord, and let them know how grateful we are for their service. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this evening we do have a public hearing, and it's on ordinance 23-0956, an ordinance of the town of Surfside to adopt the 2023 through 2024 fiscal year municipal budget and to set the tax millage for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. So who is going to handle the public hearing and the thing on the budget?
The presentation is, this is correct, or are we going now?
Well, I think we owe it to the public to do the presentation now so they know what they're commenting on.
Sorry about that. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council in our community. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about the FY 2023 and 2024 budget. And I appreciate the opportunity from our new town administrator, Mr. Vincent, to see this project through along with Diana. Diana and I are going to tag team this presentation as we go through the budget and how we got there, and to provide as much information to our community. So as Ms. Keating mentioned, they can comment on what they are hearing and provide feedback to council and to department heads as we move forward with this budget. It is a primary responsibility of a municipal government to present a balanced budget, to work with the department heads, to work with council to make sure that we are providing a high level of service and continue to provide a high level of service to the community through the budget process. And I can rest assure the community that we do not take this responsibility lightly, none of us in this room, and we've worked very hard to make sure that we provide the services at a high level. And to do that, sometimes it is very difficult and very tough conversations. And I want to explain a little bit how we got to where we're at this evening. So a little bit about a public hearing. I know everyone understands what a public hearing is. Many of you have been to public hearings before, but it is to present the information regarding this proposed budget for the 23-24 fiscal year, and it's to receive stakeholder feedback. And that stakeholder feedback tonight really for us is our community. It is our citizens that are here with us tonight to provide feedback on what we are going to present tonight. And it is also to seek council approval on the first reading of the budget. So we started the budget process really back in December of 2022, and the initial stages of the budget presentation was to develop a budget calendar. And you can see the budget calendar in front of you. And the things I want to point out was there were many meetings with department heads about their different program areas, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit more as I go through the presentation. But we also had 2 scheduled budget work sessions with council, and we also had 1 special work session with council. As we presented the information with the first budget work session that you can see that we had on March the 23rd, council had many questions and gave us some tasks that the department heads and I, as the interim town administrator, had to go back and review, and then we presented that information at our second budget work session on April the 13th with a special work session in between those 2 scheduled times. A little bit more about the budget preparation. Diana and I, along with the department heads, reviewed previous budget years. The department heads reviewed their operational budget detailed worksheets and met with the interim town administrator and the finance director. So Diana and I met with each department head, and those department heads went through all of their expenses within their budget. So as we went through those expenses, we tried to thin out those things that we could thin out, cut those costs that we could cut. But along with that was also looking at the needs that each department needed to be a progressive town, to be a progressive department, and to keep moving forward to provide that high level of service that all of you expect here in this community. The department heads had to provide justification for any cost escalation that they may have had within their budgets and justification for the supplemental requests. Some of those supplemental requests that Diane and I are going to talk about this evening are staffing requests, equipment requests, and et cetera, and we're going to go through those. So this was a multi-phased approach. We also understand that the town of Surfside Beach is not immune to what is going on in the U.S. today. We all understand, because we're all living it, that there's high inflation and there's low unemployment rates, and the Federal Reserve interest rate increase. All of that does affect the town of Surfside Beach and the residents that are here. So if you look at this high level, this 30,000 foot level of the United States, and you bring it down into the town of Surfside Beach, where we really see the cost and where the rubber meets the road for us as far as cost escalation is our landfill costs have gone up to dump our trash. Paper's gone up. Materials and supplies have gone up. The cost of fixing fire apparatus, police cars, all of the equipment that Director Adair has in public works, all of that costs more money. A set of personal protective gear for our firefighters has exponentially gone up 25 to 30%, and it continually rises each year. Just training our folks, that has an increased cost to it. So we're not immune to these economic challenges that all of us are feeling and seeing here in the town. That is why we have tried to be as prudent as we possibly can with the taxpayer dollars. We also look at revenue and expenditure assumptions, and some of those assumptions are property tax revenues and adjusted based on the growth of the town. Tourism-driven taxes and fee revenue are expected to remain strong. And one of the things that Diane is going to talk a little bit more about is when we're talking tonight about the cost associated with these increases, we're looking at general fund. I think everyone in this room probably understands that the town of Surfside Beach is funded by multiple pots of revenue, hospitality tax, local aid tax. We're going to specifically be talking about the general fund and those revenue and those expenditures as Diana gets a little bit more into the numbers. Construction permitting shows no sign of slowing. However, it's unknown for how long this rapid growth will continue as housing prices go up and interest rates go up. And then just again, to reiterate our operational costs, all of those are continuing to rise as a result of wage inflation, supply chain issues, fuel inflation, and just materials and supplies. One of the things the department heads had to do this year is we had to adjust all of our fuel costs because fuel has exponentially gone up. You're feeling it when you put fuel into your vehicles. I think the thing that's interesting is, and I think everyone in this room, our citizens, understand that they do receive a very high level of service from everyone that works in this town, no matter what position they hold. You know, you are receiving services from the police department, from your fire department, from public works, the trash being picked up, the drains being cleaned. I can't tell you how many times we hear how clean the town is. The service that the police department is providing
My
with their
God,
community
shut up.
policing measures, the service that Deputy Chief Carter and I are providing with exponentially trying to raise our level without raising costs with our ALS service. There's a cost associated with that, but the benefit certainly outweighs that cost. So when you look at all of the things that are on this screen, the total cost of town services is estimated at $85 per household. So you're getting a lot of services for that $85 a month as a citizen,
Ooh,
as a resident
$85 a month
here in the
tax
town of
increase.
Surfside Beach.
Huh?
So I'm going to turn it over
$85
to Diana. Diana, I'll work the computer.
For the town
for you while,
taxes.
Diana is sitting.
A month?
That's what he just said.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for letting me sit up here because I can't really stand at the moment. The annual revenue budget is projected this year. Basically, we're doing general fund. The general fund will be 10 million, almost 10 million one for the year.
I'm listening to the town hall about the raise of
Combination fund
taxes.
is 989,000. Combinations is 625.
Why, did you want to walk?
Summer utility fund, which you all can pay for, which is part of the $70
Well, let's
a
do it
month.
like 7:15.
That will bring in $1.7 million this year. Capital projects, $645,000, which is your road fees, which you pay on when you register your car. And then we have two minor funds that are bringing about $73,000 for a total of $17,251,000 of revenue. And enterprise funds, which would be the pier fund and sanitation fund, bring in another $3 million. $375,000 of that is for capital assets for sanitation, combined and truck. So the total overall that we think the town would do would be $20,625,460. If you were to look at this slide, you might look at why was last year so high, and the only thing I can tell you, one reason is because in last year's numbers, which was 27 million, we were still building the pier. So there was a lot of money that was put in that budget for actual cost of the pier, and it's no longer this year, so that's why it's gone down. The fund balance is as of 6/20. This would be as of last year's audit, because they're hard to update, except I think you went too far.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's not
Oh.
there.
Come on, why can't
That's
we?
why it's not on. Well, we do have some fund balance money. This would be as of the end of last year. We have some special funds that are, the money's put aside, and it can only be used for that specific purpose. The biggest one is, actually, all of it's unrestricted. Most of it's restricted funds in all of the funds.
What?
In the general fund, there's
Yeah.
only 2,008,000 that's unrestricted.
Yours is on the stove.
The one thing we do have is the American Rescue money that has to be spent within the next couple of years. And we have $2,161,000 of that, which was at the bottom of that slide, but we're missing that slide at the moment. The general fund revenue, 40% of our revenue comes from taxes, as you can see on the front line. That's $4,081,000, and that includes the $4 million increase that we are proposing. Business licenses brings in about $2,170,000. Transfers from other funds, which are specific for hospitality tax, A-tax for our tourists that come from our tourists, we transfer that money up to general fund to help offset the cost that it costs to have tourists speaking. The franchise fees is $691,000, parking revenue $559,000, intergovernmental, which is the money the state sends us, $267,000. Fines from the court, $173,000. We use capital replacement money to buy fixed assets, or trucks and vehicles, so that's $323,000. We have interest, which is, and this year it's gone up to $192,000, and a couple of years ago it was $20,000 because rates were so bad, which was nice. And transfers from other funds, we have $169,000 that we're going to have to take out of the reserves in order to make this budget balance for a total of $10,191,355. These general fund expenditures are for our biggest department, obviously, public safety. It uses 45%, $4,533,515. The rest of the general government, which would be finance and building and court and all of that, is $2,678,000. Public works is $2 million. Parking is $299,000. non-departmental, which is insurance and things that everybody shares in. That's what we usually put in the non-departmental account, 251,000. And we're gonna buy $323,000 of capital purchases for the same, so the budget has to balance, the revenue has to equal the expenditures. So that's the 10,091 on each side. Then we have a little graphic of the dollar, with the biggest piece of the dollar going to public safety, the next piece going to general government, public works gets 20%, and capital purchases is 3%, parking is 3%, and non-departmental is 2%. And our general fund balances and reserves, this is money we do have set aside, for $1.2 million in the disaster recovery fund. We hope the ordinance says that we will put more money in that fund as long as we think we, at the end of the year, if we review it and we have excess money, we'll put it in there. Capital replacement is $626,000, but we think at the end of the year, that's the money we use to buy trucks in general fund, not police, but in street department. It buys any kind of IT stuff, it buys capital things that are gonna last longer than 5 years. The land account is from the meters. And we think that by the end of this year, next year, we should have $526,000. Remember that we used that money to buy the land over at the new town hall. So that's why that balance is kind of dropped. And you need to have 4 months of reserves on hand per our ordinance. Right now, we have 4.7 as of the end of June of 23. I think that's what we'll have next year. This kind of shows it's gonna drop, but I'm not sure that that's really gonna happen. It depends on how this year goes, because as of right now, we're 4.46. So we'll probably use a little of it, but we'll probably carry some over. I think we'll be all right to make it to the 4 months. The general fund budget summary is on the next page. You see that for this year, 23-24 proposal, the budget revenue has to equal the expenditures, so that's why they're both 10,091. And as Rob said before, the major factors affecting that are new employees. Salaries and benefits, remember, are 70% of the general fund budget. All you offer in a town is service, and the service comes from people.
Although I am,
Increase in South Carolina retirement is 1% per year per state
but
law.
all this is
I think that
ridiculous. I
means
mean,
25.
nothing to me.
We're gonna get IT equipment and networking is in this budget. We have some increases in professional services.
So we thought it was important to show the community a breakdown of how their dollars are spent. You know, what does the revenue look like that comes into the town, and what do those expenditures look like? And how is that broken down throughout the general fund? So if we go back to the beginning of the presentation, and as I explained about that process of how we are getting to this slide, this was a multifaceted, multi-layer process for the things that we as a town have gone to council for them to consider for the general fund request. And what those things are is the proposed cost increases are for new personnel, that is 3 full-time firefighters, 1 full-time administration person, which is an HR person with potential risk management responsibilities, 1 full-time public works person, and 1 part-time court. It's a cost of living salary increase of 5% for our employees. It is a technology upgrade and some infrastructure with our technology, and it's an increase in professional service expenses, which is estimated to be $100,000 for a forensic audit. So those proposed fees, as far as the proposed fees for the town, there's no fee increases in the general fund. There's a millage increase of 4 mills at $80,000 per mill for a tax increase of $320,000. And using fund balance of $169,105 to balance the general fund for 2023-2024 fiscal budget. So in summary, the general fund increase of from 8.7 million to 10.1 million. And in order to balance the budget for the general fund, the following must occur. And the word must truly is discussion and consideration. Is 4 millage increase for $320,000. Again, the fund balance of $169,105, and then the transfer from special revenue funds. We also thought it was very important to show the community the impact of what a 4 mil increase would be for the residents here in the town of Surfside Beach. And when you look at this millage chart, the millage bank allows for an 8 mil increase in 23-24. Each mill yields approximately $800,000 to the town of Surfside Beach. So if you look at a 4% assessed property of an owner-occupied home here in the town, and we highlighted the 4 mil increase because that is what we are requesting. And if you look at, you split the difference between the property value of $300 to $750, and you look at $500,000, the millage would go from 43 mils to 47 mils, and that is an annual increase of $80 on your tax bill. So if you break that down, you're looking at, $6, a little bit over $6 that you would see as a resident here in the town of Surfside Beach. So, and again, you can see the chart also for the 6% assessed property for those non-residents of the town, but the homeowners, and how that equates to $120 annual increase for the 4 mil increase. So it is always difficult, to talk about a tax increase. No one wants to hear about a tax increase. But I think we have shown, and council's had a lot of discussion along with the department heads, the level of service that we want to continue to maintain here in the town of Surfside Beach. And we all understand there's a cost associated with that. And our job is to show council our needs. It is to justify those needs, but it's also to articulate that point to the community as the stakeholders, as this public hearing, as we go through this first reading of the FY 23-24 budget and for consideration. With that, I'll stand to answer any questions.
Well, at this point, since it's a public hearing, let's hear from the public if anybody has any comments. Oh, good. I'm glad we got somebody.
Surprise. Harry Cohen, 10th Avenue North. If we're talking about 4 mil, as the chief just said, at $6 per month, 20 cents per day, it's going to get us additional firefighters. I believe they're running 2 firefighters on a truck right now. Get to a fire, it's pretty useless. Not saying that the firefighter is useless, but there isn't much you can do with 2 firefighters.
Harry.
Set up a hose and wait for volunteers and stuff. Let's just give you a scenario. 3 o'clock in the morning, your house is on fire. Not a lot of volunteers around. You're waiting for the fire department to come. You hear the engine, the sirens. Oh, they're coming. They're going to save me. Guess what? There's only 2 of them. Very, 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 very bad scenario. It is. Believe me. We have been lucky. No one has died. And thank God for firefighters who want to go out there and risk their lives. And you don't want to give them enough manpower. 20 cents a day. 20 cents a day. It's all over Facebook. It's unbelievable. It's going to be crazy. The amount of money it's going to cost. 20 cents a day, folks. It's not only for safety of the residents, but it's also for the firefighters. I just don't understand some of you. But having said that, you have to have the department heads come in, and I know you've done it already, but they have to see ways to save money. You have to change the way you do things sometimes. If Public Works is only working Monday through Friday, maybe change it around. Somebody has Sunday, Monday off, someone has Friday, Saturday off. Because now when we have events, you don't have to pull somebody in on overtime. And I'm not picking on Public Works. I think they do a great job, but you have to change things. You have to try to save money. The police department, I love them. I bleed blue. But sometimes you have to look at other things too. Why are people leaving? Are our police officers leaving after being trained? I don't even know how much it costs. And they're leaving. So is it salary? Do they not get paid enough? They get trained here and they go off to Myrtle Beach? Have to look at that, because it might be cheaper in the long run to give them extra money, so that you're not training people, and 3 or 4, 6 months, a year later, they're leaving. And a forensic audit, we're gonna spend $100,000? Why? Does somebody have something? Do they know anything? If you do, then you should be going to the Attorney General with this. But if you're just doing it because someone feels like they need to be done, it's crazy. Unless you have something. I mean, really, that's a lot of money to throw away on a whim. We have a lot of great events here. But we have to evaluate each event we have and critique it at the end, because we could possibly save money. I don't know if we need another golf cart parade. I know some of you love the golf cart parade, but let's look at it. Do we need a golf cart parade for every time someone passes gas in this community? I mean, it's getting crazy. And it might not cost anything, but I know it does, because you have to have police blocking off streets, you have this and that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying eliminate all of them, but some of them maybe. And then look at each of our events. Is it really cost effective? You know, everyone always screams on Facebook about how Surfside Beach, it's terrible, it's mean, it's cheap, we like Garden City better. Well, you know what? When was the last time Garden City had an event? Never. Go down to Garden City and see how that is. It's dirty. This community is beautiful. I love this community. But let's stop wasting some money and get our act together here a little bit, fine tune it. But like I said, 20 cents a day. Put me in for 10 years right now. I'll give it to you. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? Okay, if there are none, then this public hearing is closed. And the next thing I will entertain is motions relating to the agenda. Does anybody have any motions relating to the agenda? The next thing is minutes approval, and these are the minutes approval for March 9th, 2023.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve the minutes for March 9th, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion before we vote on them? Sherry?
Mr. Drake,
Yes.
Ms. Keating,
Yes.
Mr. Kinkin,
Yes.
Mr. Kreckball,
Yes.
Mr. Stamey,
Yes.
Mayor Hilliard.
Yes. And the next things is public comments, and these are public comments relating to the agenda. Are there any public comments? Okay, moving right along, the next is communication, and this is the oath of office for Wes Hope.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, and citizens. I'm very pleased to be able to ask the mayor to come up and assist us tonight. I would like the community to have the opportunity to meet our new lieutenant. This is Lieutenant Wes Hauk. Just want to give a little bit of information. I met Lieutenant Hauk in 2017 at a Law Enforcement Executive Development Association Leadership Conference. And in that time, he was working in Kansas. And we developed a relationship because we had very similar ideas about leadership and how important leadership is in law enforcement. Some years later, in 2021, I was fortunate enough to find out that he had retired and was moving to the South Carolina area. So I quickly offered him a position in our beach services. So he's been with us for a couple of years. But I want to give you a little bit of background information on Lieutenant Houck. In February of 1995, he started his career with the Metropolitan Topeka, Kansas Airport Authority as a safety officer. He attended the Kansas Law Enforcement Academy in Topeka, Kansas, graduating in August of '96. He joined the Douglas County Sheriff's Office in Lawrence, Kansas in January of 1997 and worked 24 hours for the community that he loved until his retirement in January of 2021. During his career, he's worked and supervised in the Patrol Division, Corrections staff, along with supervising the Operations and Corrections Division of the administrative divisions. He is a certified public manager through the University of Kansas, has attended the FBI Central State Leads, which is an executive development program. He supervised a traffic unit. He was a team leader for the underwater search and recovery team, along with administratively working on staff development, budgeting, and succession planning. After his retirement, he and his family, his wife Amy is here, and his daughter Peyton are here, and they moved to the Murrells Inlet area, and he started working with the Surfside Beach Police Department as a beach services attendant in April of 2021. Over the last 2 years, he's worked on the beach and assisted the police department with special projects in the off season. He found his passion and still remains public service, enriching the community he loves. With that and careful consideration and a lot of pressure from me, he chose to come out of retirement and return to law enforcement. With his experience and passion for serving, he looks forward to continuing a career where he can be an integral part of the Surfside Beach community. When Lieutenant Houck started working with us in 2021, he came on as a beach services attendant, one of our ambassadors on the beach. However, because of his extensive prior law enforcement experience, administrative experience, he quickly became an asset to the police department. Captain Miller and I tasked him with everything we possibly could. He helped us gladly in the off season to get through some tough times with projects that we had. He took the lead in the town's transition to the AT&T FirstNet communications, not just for the police department, but for the entire town, and that was a big lift. He also assisted me with our military surplus program, the 1033 program that we joined. He used his experience with policy development. He wrote the policy for the department to join and also help me implement that program. He's presently helping and has been planning along with Captain Miller and I to build a pilot program called the Community Service Officer Program, where we are utilizing some of our beach services staff to help us offset some patrol projects that can help us keep police officers available and not tied up on some administrative tasks. So he's been a tremendous help through that, and I appreciate everything you've done. But we are going to give the oath of office, and I'm going to ask the mayor if he'll assist.
Okay. Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Wesley Houck,
Do solemnly swear that I am duly qualified,
do solemnly swear that I'm duly qualified,
according to the Constitution of the State of South Carolina,
according to the Constitution of the State of South Carolina,
to execute the duties of police officer.
to execute the duties of police officer,
The position to which I have been appointed
the position to which I have been appointed
for the town of Surfside Beach, South Carolina.
to the town of Surfside Beach, South Carolina.
I will, to the best of my knowledge and ability,
I will, to the best of my knowledge and ability,
discharge the duties thereof,
discharge the duties thereof,
and preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the State of South Carolina
the Constitution of the State of South Carolina
and the Constitution of the United States.
and the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Further,
Further,
I solemnly swear, and during my term as police officer lieutenant,
solemnly swear and do
during
my term as police lieutenant,
for the town of Surfside Beach, South Carolina,
for the town of Surfside Beach, South Carolina.
that I will study the acts,
I will study the acts,
laws,
laws,
statutes,
statutes,
and ordinance
and ordinance
prescribing my duties.
prescribing my duties.
I will be alert and vigilant
I will be alert and vigilant
to enforce all of the criminal acts,
to enforce all the criminal acts,
laws,
laws,
statutes,
statutes,
and ordinances of the state of South Carolina
and ordinances of the state of South Carolina
and the town of Surfside Beach.
and the town of Surfside Beach.
I will strive to detect
I will strive to detect
and bring to justice
and bring to justice
every violator of them.
every violator of them.
I will conduct myself at all times with the consideration
I will conduct myself at all times with the consideration
for all persons
for all persons
and will not be influenced in any manner
and will not be influenced in any manner
on account of personal bias
on account of personal bias
or prejudice.
or prejudice.
So help me God.
So help me God.
In witness thereof,
In witness thereof,
I have earned set my hand this 23rd day of May,
I have set my hand this 23rd day,
2023.
2023.
Get your signature here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will say that Lieutenant Harrop was very excited about me doing this in public tonight. And do you have anything you'd like to say?
No, just thank you very much. I appreciate you all having me.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. I have found that over the years, after the oath is done with the mayor, and thank you for doing that, Mr. Mayor. Sometimes I go back and we go back over the oath again, because let's be honest, when you're doing that, you're just trying to remember the last three words and repeat them, because it can be a little nerve wracking. But Lieutenant, congratulations. I turn over control to you of the Uniform Patrol Division of the Surfside Beach Police Department, beach operations, beach patrol, training, special events, fleet, and quartermaster. And I'm happy to let you have it. I know you'll do a great job, and I'm very proud of you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chief.
The next thing on the agenda is the Employee Service Award for Larry Carter. 10 years of service,
Yes.
presented by Chief Clement.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. And Wes, I'll just tell you, I was trying to recite that. You did way better than me. I was trying to do it in my head. And on behalf of the fire department, some of the members are here. We are glad to have you, and we appreciate you. Thank you. Deputy Chief Carter, you mind coming up here with me? So we are celebrating Deputy Chief Carter 10-year anniversary with the town of Surfside Beach, and that is a milestone. Larry is a very dedicated employee, firefighter here for the town, and I am so lucky to have him as my deputy chief. I've been the fire chief now for, I guess, going on 2 years now. And I can tell you, when I got here, Larry was the acting chief, and I really didn't know how this was gonna go. Because Larry didn't know me and I didn't know Larry. But I can tell you, in order for a chief of any department, and I'm sure Chief Hoffman can back me on this, you have to have a quality team and great people. And you have to have that number two. And I don't consider him as a number two person for me. We do this together. We are a team. He is my deputy chief. We talk about everything. And his 10 years here in this town has helped me so much be a much better fire chief, because I have someone I can lean on and I can bounce ideas off of, and he will set me straight about the town. So the 10 years has come in handy, Larry, and I really do appreciate you. I know I speak for all of the members that are back there here tonight. We are very lucky to have you, and I appreciate everything that you've done, and congratulations on your 10 years of service here. And I don't want to neglect his wife Dee either, because we know we wouldn't be able to do this without our spouses. So, Larry?
Well, let's say I'm very fortunate and very blessed to be part of a great town.
a great organization. And I've been blessed to be part of the fire service now for 32 years. This year marked 25 years as a career firefighter. My family, you know, my brothers and family, the fire department, great leadership. You know, the Chief Clemens. I mean, I've been given a, you know, opportunity of a lifetime. I mean, being a firefighter is something I want to do since I was in the 3rd grade. And I've had an opportunity to come up through the fire service, through many ranks. And now to, you know, the high point of my journey, my career, I'm where I'm at today. You know, I want to thank all of y'all, everybody, town, for giving me the opportunity to be part of this town 10 years ago. And I look forward to another 10. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the administrator's report. And this is with our new town administrator, Mr. Benson, and also in coordination with Chief Clant, who is our interim.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, members of council, good evening. My wife could not be here tonight, but there's going to be some opportunities for some events this weekend that she'll be meeting each of you. Yes, sir. So the Chief Clemens and I are going to kind of tag team our reports. First, meetings have been held and scheduled with staff directors and town council. I met the last 2 council members today. And I've got the next probably 10 days to meet the rest of the directors individually. I have toured the pier and received up-to-date reports with pending issues to be resolved by Chief Clemens. I've made the initial contact with Friesen Associates yesterday as a kickoff session regarding our tentative schedule, which you see attached. It indicates that surveys will be received by Town Hall the 1st of June, and looking at a completion date 6 months down the road around October. I have been out and about with the public, getting acquainted with the local businesses. A staff meeting was held this morning, and we will continue on a regular basis to keep you abreast of department operations, ongoing issues, and projects with my directors. I do plan to attend the 2045 Metropolitan Plan update on Wednesday at the local library in Surfside Beach. I've also been invited to attend the managers meeting with Waccamaw Regional Council of Government in Georgetown on Thursday. And lastly, very excited to be here, 5 days strong, or 7 days strong, actually. Staff has been very accommodating to make me feel at home. Chief Clemens has done an excellent job, and it was a great choice on your part. He's kept me up to date on projects moving forward without any interruptions. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. If I can just take a second. Mr. Vincent, all of your department heads are here. We're all here. All your department heads are here. So I just want to take the opportunity, and I know you didn't always want to do this, and I'm sorry, but me and Kenny do this a lot. Sorry, Kenny, I had to drag you in there with me. I can tell you, we are very excited to have you, sir. And we are looking forward to your leadership. We're looking forward to seeing what you can do for this town. I know looking at Sabrina and John, and Kenny and Diana, Sherry, we got you. So whatever you need from us, we are going to give our all, so you will be successful. So we're glad to have you, sir. So just a quick update as I continue. One of the projects that Mr. Benson's going to have me continue until the pier project is completed is to give a pier update report. So currently there's still a lot of work going on the pier. Here are some of the highlights from 2 weeks. The concrete resurfacing is complete at the pier. The pier handrail installation is complete, and the concrete post tops will be completed once the material is received. Inlaid decking on the pier remains in progress. The storefront installation is complete. There were a few pieces of broken glass that is scheduled to be replaced. The rooftop walkway system has been installed on Building A in front of the pier. Sheetrock installation finishing remains in progress on the pier and inside some of the buildings. There's still a lot of mechanical installation in progress, and you can see that the trestle has been, there's demobilization of the trestle. The only thing that's really left is the box now. And they're still taking the sand and everything out of that to get the box taken down. The electrical fixtures installation remains in progress. The elevator installation is now complete. The fire suppression, the fire sprinkler system installation is still in progress. The plumbing fixtures in the restrooms installation is in progress and almost completed, along with some interior and exterior painting. The fish table installation is in progress, and there are still some questions that Consensus, Collins Engineering, and LS3P are looking into, with some mounting brackets at the end of the pier, and the owner's communication system as far as telephone and internet drops in the buildings. So lots of work still continues at the pier.
Mr. Mayor, has there been any further discussion or resolution of the potential safety hazard of the handicap fishing access, where the top beam is virtually impossible for one person to handle, and it leaves about a 9-inch gap at the bottom unprotected?
Yes, ma'am, and thank you for the question. So Mr. Vincent and I actually went out to, when Collins Engineering and LS3P and Consensus did their last inspection, we did have a conversation about that. And some of the preliminary discussion is to have a box built that would be somehow mounted underneath that access, that would be part of the removal process when the top gets lifted up, and then the bottom will have to be lifted out also. So there's still some discussion about exactly what's going to happen. So if you can visualize the rail, that rail system that's on the top actually is removed. And it is going to take two people to remove it. Yes, ma'am, it is. So one of the discussions is the personnel that could potentially be assigned at the pier. They would be the ones that would have to be in contact. They have to be requested to go out, take that off, and then they would also take the bottom piece off also. So there has been discussion about that. Every one of us have recognized. Now, it is meeting code. It is compliant. That's the way it's supposed to be. But we've recognized that there's a potential hazard there. Yes, ma'am. So there has been discussion. Thank you for the question. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, the next thing is the finance report by Director King.
Good evening, everyone. My report is for February, because we are a little short-staffed in finance. I hope that this week I can get March and April done, and I will send them on to you. This is a little bit stale information. General fund revenue totals 5.6 million. Year to date, our expenses are up to 5.6 million. Property tax collections were 54,000 in February. They're on their way down now. Business license renewals have been mailed, and they're due in April. I did look at business license today, just as an aside, and I think our budget is 800,000, and we've collected almost 750 so far. So we are well on track with business license, and that's our local business license. So we're doing good there. In February, there were 25 new business licenses opened. Special revenue funds, which is accommodations, hospitality, and local aid tax. January is a little bit of a slow month for collections from 1.7 million year to date and 362,000 year to date for local aid tax. So state aid tax was given us 649,000. Capital projects fund, we are now getting the road fees from the county again, which we didn't get all of last year. This fund also holds the beach renourishment funds, which we are hopeful not have to use. Feds will be paying for our next beach renourishment. Street improvement fund is $369,000, and the American Rescue Fund has 2.16 million. The stormwater utility fund continues to collect money, which we're going to use towards the second phase of the drainage project. Right now, we have $458,000 that we've gotten in this year. The pier and sanitation funds, sanitation fund is holding its own. It's collected 1.1 million and expended 900,000, so it's always running. It's doing as it always has, running in the black. Parking season starting in March. I do have an update on that, and that we're doing pretty good for the month of March and April. For the pier, which is the number that I really need to sit down and do this month and get that brought up to date. Because this month, what this is through February, and it's really kind of stale, because the last it said that we paid Consensus 14.9 million, and I think this really needs to be updated rather than presenting it, because it's just not relevant at all to where we are today. The only line that I would say is about 10 from the bottom, the contingency, which we used to have $1 million in. We're down to 800,000 that's left, so we're using that up at a pretty good rate. But this I will update, and I will get to you if you want to look at all the other funds. General fund is running. General fund, we're net short $27,000, which is really kind of nothing when you deal with $10 million. Sanitation fund is running in the red of 100, and the black of 189,000. Pier has a net revenue due to the $1 million from the state for the grant. Accommodations fund has a net of $134,000. Hospitality is the one that pulls us along. It's got almost $950,000 right now in February, and it only will go higher as the summer months as we get more tourists. Local accommodations is one that's negative $26,000, but that's because we pulled so much of that money out to put to the pier. Stormwater fund has $351,000, and the capital projects fund says $234,000. So everything is really on track at this point, from what I can tell you, but this is February, but I don't think that we should have any problems. We should be getting with business licenses coming in as strong as they did, which was kind of an unknown because we have a lot of new businesses, and how it works with business licenses. The first year you estimate what you're going to make. And you're never going to overestimate. And if you do, you won't get your money back, so you don't. But a lot of new businesses that they have no idea they're going to make $2,000, they're going to make $20,000, they're going to make $200,000. And a lot of little businesses that have come in, and I was really surprised that we got to 700. I think it's going to be great. Does anybody have any questions? And I will get you the rest of those reports hopefully by the end of this week.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Dan, do you have any estimate on parking? I know you're going through February and you're looking at 287 to 237. What do you see with the added on parking? Where will we probably end up based on those numbers?
I think I get the numbers in from Pivot from March and April, and they did better than they even expected to do. So, but off the top of my head, I don't remember. But I will know by the end of the week. I will get to that. I do think they're doing quite well.
All right, well, just using the number of 237, what do you think the number will end if you calculate the months? And
probably going to be probably 350, 400 maybe, by the time we net out.
350 or 400?
By the time we net out some other things. I think if I looked in the budget for next year, that what I anticipated, just did this number for somebody else.
150.
Yeah, I don't know that it's going to be.
And you don't have the pier figured in any of that, right?
No, we do not.
That's just on the $2 an hour that we normally collect.
It's only on whatever, this is what Pivot gave me for what they thought they were going to collect. That's what I'm using. Where is this? Police fire. I think I thought by the end of this year, or the end of next year, the parking fees would be like $460 for next year. We would spend like $300,000, so we would have a net of like $271 coming in, and we would probably end at like $532. Don't forget, last year we only ended $106 because I drained it all to buy $210.
Right, we had, that's what it's for.
So that's what it's for.
That's what it's for.
So then this year, I thought we were going to bring in 106, but we're probably going to bring in a little bit more than that. Just because it is bringing a lot of ticket revenue.
Yeah, well, they're riding all over town. That's good.
I think it's, but there are expenses too that we didn't ever have to provide some of the things that we're providing to Pivot. So I think we're going to have to look and see what those numbers set out to be. Because we never provided a car before, and gas and all of that.
Well, we're riding the little Ranger, correct? The one we already had?
And the golf course.
Yeah.
We just never had to do that before, so. I think I will know better by the end of the week, and I can highlight that when I send it out.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Send me when you get that.
I will.
Thank you.
Come on.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much. And the next thing on In the business section is the second reading of ordinance 230955, authorizing and directing the town of Surfside Beach to enter into an intergovernmental agreement relating to South Carolina local revenue services to participate in one or more local revenue services programs, to execute and deliver one or more participant program supplements, and other matters thereto. Diane.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept ordinance 23-095 for second reading, authorizing the town to enter into the intergovernmental agreements necessary to continue participation in the local revenue services offered by the municipal association.
Second.
Is there any discussion on it before we take a vote? Sherry?
Mr. Drake,
Yes.
Mrs. Keating,
Yes.
Mr. Kinkin,
Yes.
Mr. Krecklau,
Yes.
Mr. Stamey,
Yes.
Mayor Hellier.
Yes. And the next thing on the agenda is the first reading of ordinance 230956, an ordinance of the town of Surfside Beach to adopt the 2023-24 fiscal year municipal budget and to tax the millage, to set the tax millage for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. And Chief Clement, it has your name.
Yes, so I guess now we'll entertain any questions. If there's anything that I can go back over in the PowerPoint, or questions that Diana and I can answer from council, if you want, I'll have it.
Okay, does anybody have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Clemens, you were stating that all the additional equipment that we're leaning into the tax increase for the respirator, the fresh air supply, the stuff for uniforms, stuff like that, you went into talking about the equipment and stuff for them. Do we have the equipment for 3 additional employees now, or do you something else we're gonna get a bill for?
No, sir, that was part of the budget. So when we sat down and went through the fire department budget, and for those 3 people, sir, that is part of the overall cost for those people. So, Mr. Drake, we would need, we have the air pack, so we have the SCBA and the mask and all that, but we would have to get them personal protective gear, uniforms, boots, helmet. those
You already
kinds
have
of
that
things.
figured in.
We have that figured in. Yes, sir, that was part of the ancillary request and supplemental request that we asked for. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, when we met in March, you had originally had included in the proposed budget about 15 additional headcounts. And we came back and said, we cut that back to what, 6 or 7 or 8. But when I look at the numbers that were given to us for department expenses in April and also the one in May, they're not really reflective of those reductions. And as a matter of fact, the department expenses for administration was increased between April and May for an additional $89,000. Can you explain why that doesn't align?
Well, I think we might need, Diane and I did have a conversation about that, Ms. Keating, and quite honestly, we're not exactly sure the question. Because what we did, there was ancillary, there was cost escalation that we had to put into each department regardless of the people. So I'm not sure if that's what you're factoring in when we reduce the people. There's still cost escalation for services that still need to be provided. So I'm not sure if you're mixing those two things, or, because we did show, and I talked with Diana, we did show a reduction in cost when we reduced the number of people, where council said you need to reduce your number of people. There was a decrease in the overall operational costs, because we had talked about that yesterday or Friday. I'm not for sure. So I'm not sure if it's being reflected there, Ms. Keating, but there was a reduction in the overall cost.
Well,
So I'm
like
not
for
sure if
example, if we look at administration, according to the headcount requested, it should have been reduced by 80,575.
Just for the personnel costs?
Just for that headcount that we requested be removed. But what was removed was 70,550. But when you get to the May version of the budget for the administration, it's up an additional 88,800 from there.
88,000?
$88,800.
And that was from
Because
that
it
one?
went from 804,685 to 734,135, back up to 822,935, just for the administrative budget. Now, for example, I look at Kenny's budget, and we had requested the 2 police officers be removed. That had a value of $154,000, and his budget went down $154,400.
Yes, ma'am.
So that seems, I mean, close. I don't know why you donated the extra $400, but thanks for that. But when I look at the fire department, we had said not 4 officers, 3 officers. Well, each officer had a value of about $120,400. Well, we only reduced the budget by $83,340. Well, 301 divided by 4.
Then they were less than 100,000.
Well,
75,500 each.
I mean, it's just not adding up. And then we have, you know, a few other places that we've changed numbers for some reason that, you know, I don't understand. I mean, we reduced parking by about $35,000 in revenue. We've increased other fund transfers by 97,000. I'm not sure we have the corresponding expenses for those. But I still have not seen the answers to justify the original request for head count. You know, one of the spiels we got about why we needed 15 additional heads was because we spend so much money on overtime. But, and if you recall the discussion in March, we had just published that we had 10 open positions. So I had asked at that time, what is the evaluation of what the overtime expense would look like if we had what we would consider full staffing?
Well, and I think that's one of the things that we need to be careful about how we say. Because the 10 positions that were posted online, remember there was volunteer positions. I think we went through that in the budget work session. I think it showed 10, but it really wasn't 10. There was other positions in there. I think we had given a count. I don't remember what that number was off the top of my head. And I think with the old, so it was 8. The overtime, when we talk about the overtime, it is a slippery slope. If you are at full staffing, regardless of the department, you're going to be able to reduce your overtime costs, or at least keep your overtime costs hopefully for what you're budgeted for. But as events and other things happen within the town, there's still going to be ancillary overtime costs with that. And if you're just trying to fill those vacancies to just reduce your overtime, and I can specifically speak to the fire department, there's still going to be some overtime costs with that. It's not about the total reduction of overtime. It's being prudent with those dollars to try to stay in budget. But for the fire department expenses, it's about staffing, it's about safety, it's about all those things that I've talked with you about on how to be operationally effective. So I know for the police department also, yes, we try to watch the overtime, and, you know, we try not to blur those lines between, if you give us more people, overtime is going away. That's not going to be the case. There's still going to be some overtime for the departments, regardless if it's a fire department, police department, or public works. And I'm sorry we didn't answer that question for you. I thought we had answered that for you. If we didn't, it's something we could, you know, work with Mr. Vincent on to try to answer that question along with Diana. When we looked at the positions, because when we got that question, Diana and I talked about that. Okay, I understand, we understood what you were saying, but when we looked at the budget, Diana was like, there was a reduction overall in cost because of the reduction in people. So I'm not sure why it's not lining up to what you're seeing.
Yeah, I'm just going with the value you placed on the heads
Yes,
in the March presentation you gave us
yes,
versus
versus them
the
being removed.
deltas in the information we're providing.
Understand, yes, ma'am.
But we've also added back 100,000 for the forensic audit. So that's in addition to administration. So what we reduced it by, we added some more back. Plus, we had some more better numbers from Jared, which is why parking changed. Jared gave us, first they were doing the whole town, then they weren't doing the whole town, so they reduced it. Now I guess they're gonna put it back, but whatever. So we did have some things that were moving with people giving us better information. So that's why some things.
And we knew some of that was,
Parking expenses went down.
I'm sorry?
Parking expenses went down.
Right, the revenue should go down. From the first,
The revenue went down $35,000.
because they thought they weren't, yeah.
So their expenses went down $34,000.
The numbers he gave.
Some shit.
But they're up, right, Mr. Mayor? They're up, right? The
I
parking.
think we'll leave there.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Chief, my problem is we're increasing the millage, but we didn't increase it enough to cover the additional costs. I think it should balance. We should not have a budget where we're taking money out of reserves to make it balance. And we talked about this before. I would either, and I don't think anybody up here wants to increase the millage, but we understand we have to. When you tell us that it's not safe for your truck to leave the firehouse with 2 people on it, we better listen. And the same way with some of the other requests. But I would like to see something where the two match, where our increase in personnel and our increase in millage match, and that we're not doing negative savings, because we can't change the millage next year. Whatever we approve this year, we're stuck with it for 2 years. Am I right, Diana?
Pretty much.
Okay. And if we're doing negative, we're pulling out of reserves this year, we're gonna have to pull that much or more out next year. And I just don't, it's not a good way to run a railroad. You know, you can't just spend money out of reserves and expect it to last forever. So I would like to see, one, take out the forensic audit and one person. And that way the two would match. I'm open to any suggestion, but I just feel like that what we raise ought to be enough to cover the whole budget, and we don't have to do a negative $170,000 out of reserves.
Yes. Well, I hear what you're saying, Mr. Kinkin.
And let me finish.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The reason that being, there's a white elephant. We don't know what it's gonna cost. To this day, we don't know. We don't know when it's gonna be done. That we're gonna have to pay for it somehow. And I don't wanna take money out of reserves just to meet everyday expenses when we're gonna have to look at what we do on that.
Yes, sir. And I understand what you're saying. And, you know, staff, my charge as the interim was to show the needs of the departments, to maintain that level of service. And I think we did that. And I think we had very robust conversations with the 3 budget work sessions. You made your thoughts known during that. When we left the last work session, and what was publicized to the community was the 4 mills. And I understand what you're saying, sir. I mean, it's either raising the millage to meet it all, or raising the millage to meet what council feels is acceptable as far as personnel. I mean, it's no secret. Personnel are the biggest cost of this budget. Diana mentioned 70% of the general fund is personnel costs. And then how do we do that? Do we raise the millage to meet it all? And we did calculate that. That was 8. So we can, and we talked about those things. If you want to pay it all by a millage increase, this is what you got to, take it to the full, I believe it, I thought it was 8. I looked at the numbers. It might be 6.
I mean, if we've got 169,000 shortage and it's $80,000
It'd be
a
six,
deal,
yes.
so it'd be 6.
So we either raise the millage to meet it all, or, we raise the millage and pull from another revenue source. And, that is what we publicized. That was the last discussion from the second work session. And then now that discussion continues on, are we going to continue down that path, or are we going to change it? I think we have articulated, as departments, and I've tried to do that as when I was the interim, on the need and justification. Now, it really is, and I don't need to explain it to council, it's a tough decision on, do we fund any of it? Do we fund none of it? Do we fund half of it? Because you know how we feel, and we've all made some concessions to the best of our ability, moving police officers to potentially mid-year. And I hear what you're saying, sir. You're pulling from one to pay for something else, but you're not just paying for it all up front. You're not writing a check to pay it all July 1.
Mr. Mayor, Chief, I've made my comments known to you. I've made my comments known to the administrator. As a town, this $160-some thousand that we're getting from another fund is not acceptable, not in my book. I think we need the millage increase. I think that we need to go ahead and cut two more people out of it, and go ahead and do the rest of it. This forensic audit is just a one-year deal. It's going to be the $100,000. That ain't going to help in the long run. It's going to get it back for that 1 year. I think we shouldn't do that right now. There's no reason whatsoever to have a forensic audit spend that money. In the meantime, with the people that we're allowing that's being brought in, I'm forgiving you two people. I'm forgiving the HR person that we need here in town. These things that I'm for. We can fund that with the 4 millage increase. We can look at this 6 months down the road again and see if we can't come up with another reasonable way of more money coming in, that we can fund another fireman, or we can fund John's person. But right now, as a council, as we look at it and the people, we're short. We're short $169,000. It don't matter how you look at it. That $169,000 is, if we take the forensic audit off of it, that's only good for 1 year. If we hire these people in, that's for a lifetime or for many years down the road. We got to have money to pay them people. This millage increase will take care of that. But right now, looking at it, I cannot see hiring that many people into town right now. For me. And I've discussed this with y'all.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, the aspect of your firefighters showing up, and 2 firefighters, right?
Yes, sir.
We have a mutual aid agreement, right?
Yes, sir.
And who backs you up?
Depends on where the call is, but.
I mean, if we got a house in Surfside right now, catches on fire.
Horry County.
Horry County. From where?
Station 20, Station 1, it could be Garden City, it could be Station 23, it depends on where the call is, but it's Horry County is going to be the primary unit for it.
They're gonna send what? If you got there and the house is on fire and you said,
They're
we
going
got
to
a
send
blade.
2 engines, they're going to send a truck, they're going to send a battalion chief, they're going to send a safety officer.
Okay, all right. Is that normal protocol?
Yes.
Okay. When you get a call on, across the street in Deerfield,
As we did yesterday.
right, and you went over and did what?
What's that?
What did y'all have to do? What did you have to do in Deerfield?
We had a fire in Deerfield, we had a structure fire.
Okay, in Deerfield.
In
And who went to put it out?
Which is in our contract area,
In your contract. You went over there and put the house out, right?
along with Horry County units,
And
yes.
Horry County come there too.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Then if we have a wreck on Glens Bay Road, you go to those, right?
If it's in our
Or
contract
fire.
area, yes, sir.
Or a fire.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In other words, we have an additional firefighters, we have additional people. It's gonna have to rely on Horry County And we got one in Garden City, one in Myrtle's Inlet. Where's the other one?
Get Myrtle Beach.
Myrtle Beach, okay, all right.
But normally, that's not the case.
Okay, but we have the people to put the fire out, right?
We have the people to put the fire out, but it takes time for those units to get there that are automatic or mutual aid units, and it takes reflex times on the scene to be able to deploy the appropriate hose line, ladders, and all the other things that need to be done. There's time associated with that.
All
Yes.
right. That's what I was gonna find out. Now, we've been talking about, we need to find other money, right? Trying to find more money, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, and I asked Diana about the parking, right? The parking, pretty good revenue, right? Diana? Okay. We're the cheapest on the Grand Stream. $2 an hour. Why don't we raise it to $4 an hour? Then we'll put a little plaque up at every single parking area that says, for the fire department, extra revenue. Your $2 extra, now that would be divided. Because you're gonna put the 2 over here for the, what we've already originally set up. The other $2 they collect would go over toward covering these firefighters.
With all due respect, Mr. Drake, that's not my decision.
Well, I'm asking you a question. I mean, when you're sitting there saying we need to raise millage, we need to raise millage, and we're talking 300 and something thousand, 300 something thousand, 320. And then we got 169 on the transfer, which if we don't do the transfer and get 320, and Diana said 350 to 400, and I know Diana, she's conservative today as well. So I knew our other budget said 500 and something thousand. Okay, the other one said 500 and something thousand. Okay, so if we shoot for the moon and the stars, it'd be a double whammy, but I'm not gonna say we're gonna collect that much. I think we'll collect probably another 400. Because people on vacation will pay $5 for a drink. They'll pay, for a hot dog, $3 or $4, or $5 or $10 for a hamburger and 3 little French fries. I don't think they're gonna complain about paying $4 a part. Considering if they go to Myrtle Beach, it's more. If they go to North Myrtle Beach, it's more. Myrtle Beach raised theirs. North Myrtle Beach raised theirs this year to do what? Cover in their budget so they did not have to make a tax increase on their residents. So if we're all looking for more money, it's sitting right in front of us in the park. And if you leave Pivot alone, I think they'll get the job done. And if it's in fines, if it's in the parking they're collecting, that's great. That's what they're here for. But I'm looking at the budget, and I'm looking at the stuff, and if I take the tax mill out, and I'm looking for more money, we got it. And all it takes is a vote of council to raise it to $4. And then I'm pretty sure John, in about 48 hours or so, he could get the sign and the stickers and put them up there.
Yeah, Mr. Drake, I am all for council looking at alternative revenue sources for this town other than a millage increase. All for it, 100% for that. I wish this would have been a little bit more of a robust discussion about the parking when we were going through the budget work session, with all due respect, sir, because we could have looked into that a whole lot more. But I'm all for it. If we think that if parking will do that, and that's something that the council wants to have a discussion about and vote on, along with the new town administrator and having that discussion, I'm all for it, and I think the residents are too.
Yeah.
But Mr. Drake, I do need to touch on something, because you bring this up a lot. You bring up about automatic aid, and I just want to reiterate something to you and to council.
All right.
Because we talk about automatic aid and mutual aid, which is one of the best things the American Fire Service ever did.
I agree.
But we also have to remember that automatic and mutual aid, that it is not the responsibility of Ward County to come and put our fires out. Neither is Surfside Beach applying one unit to put out Ward County fires, because I want to explain this again. The NIST studies on effective firefighting force in the Assembly of Firefighters for our typical Surfside Beach construction, which is lightweight construction, and the flash over time temperature curve, once again, used to be 14 minutes. It's about 7 now, probably less than that, with no wind. What do we have on the beach? Wind, all the time. The climate, the weather, the BTU production, people had more stuff in their houses, more plastics, more textiles, more things that burn quicker, hotter, faster. And the task of hose line deployment, search and rescue, ventilation, multiple hose lines on multiple floors, cannot get done with two people when there's people hanging out the windows, whether you live here or you are a resident. And not to mention incident command that needs to be set up. 3-person crew versus 2-person crew. This is not about automatic aid and mutual aid. This is about the town of Surfside Beach having the appropriate people on their unit initially to save lives, and hopefully all of my firefighters go home at the end of the day. Overall scene times 25% faster. Time to water on a fire 6% faster. This is all from NIST studies, not Rob Clemens, studies, science, flow path, patterns. Primary search and rescue is 6% faster. Hose line stretch time is 19% faster. If you have those things in place, it reduces that fire from becoming that aggressive fire in that house, because we've got more people to be able to do those tasks to hopefully put the fire out. We'll still never put every fire out. We'll still never save every person. But the way we are operating in the town of Surfside Beach now, and Mr. Drake, you're right, sir. I will wholeheartedly agree with you on this. This is a hard subject because firefighters are expensive. The equipment is expensive.
Yes.
All of it is expensive. So I'm not being disrespectful, sir, because I hear what you're saying and I'm all for other funding. But relying on Horry County units, when we're down on the boulevard and I have done studies. I've been doing this for 40 years. I know what I'm talking about. I have done studies. Station 1, Socastee Station, coming down Glades Bay, 120, these units that are our primary units, they are 6 to 8 minutes out. You put summertime traffic in, they're probably longer than that. So it is making sure that Chauncey Kelly, that is on duty today, who's on duty today? Chauncey's on duty today, Xavier's on duty today. They're going with 2 people down here on the boulevard to a house that is 7,000 square feet. We ain't saving them. We're gonna be lucky to be able to get a hose line deployed effectively and quickly to make sure the house doesn't flash over and kill every resident in the building. And even with 3 people, I'm not gonna come up here and give false pretenses and tell you, but I can tell you this, because I've been on a lot of fires. And 3 people makes a heck of a difference, and the NIST studies prove that. So it's how do you fund it?
Right.
It's how do you fund it?
How do you fund it?
And right now, the budget work sessions, we went with 4 mills and $169,000, $170,000. That was the direction council said to go at that particular time. So if there is appetite to re-look at a funding mechanism like parking and things like that, then that's the will of the council to get direction.
Will still be the cheapest on the Grand Strand.
Mr. Mayor, I have one quick question.
Yes, sir.
When the county or Myrtle Beach or whoever is coming out for mutual aid.
Yes, sir.
Do they always have a 3-person crew?
Not always.
So they're relying on us also to make sure that they have enough people to fight a fire.
Absolutely,
Correct?
but the majority of the time they do have the 3, yes, sir. And I can't tell you right off the top of my head their staffing numbers. I do believe Myrtle Beach, their minimum staffing is 3. I think Horry County, most of their units are at 3 and some 4. Yes, sir, because they've.
Mr. Mayor, when we started out with this budget, you asked for, it started out with like 10 or 11 people. We've cut down 15 people. We know eventually these people's gotta come from somewhere, eventually. Right now, we pushed them aside, but you asked for them before, and you know they're gonna come down the road. We've gotta have money to pay for that. And the only way, we're gonna generate extra money maybe from parking. Great, I hope we do. But the only way to pay overall is a tax increase to this town. As some of our citizens pointed out earlier, 20 cents daily per person. That ain't nothing. We go out and spend money. I do, and I'm assuming everybody else does. Go out for a great meal. We don't mind spending $75 or $100 to go out and eat. But yet for our safety, the millage rate that we're asking for is nothing. It is nothing. And we are, believe it or not, we're gonna have to have more people, y'all, everybody, and we're gonna have money to pay them. Chief Hopkins put off his people to get this budget worked out. But eventually Chief Hoffman is going to come back to us looking for them people. We've got to have money somewhere to help pay for these things. And the only way, we should have increased the taxes, millage rate last time, but that's another subject. The only way I can see we get any money started up and know it's coming is a millage rate.
And all of us understand how hard this is, and, you're right, we've all, I mean, Kenny moved his two people, and I can tell you, Kenny and I talked about that, and this community needs to know, John, all of us, we didn't haphazardly just sit in a room and go, hey, I need these people. We truly looked at this, and Kenny said, Rob, you need these firefighters, I'm gonna push my two people to mid-year. He did that, I didn't do that, we did that as a public safety initiative because our job is to protect the public. And I am no financial wizard, or I'm a fire chief, but I do know this because I've been in government for many, many years. The piper will need to be paid at some point. And no one wants a tax increase. Tax increases affect me too. I live right over here on Pike Boulevard. If there's a tax increase in Horry County, I'm gonna feel it. So we're all affected by it. The thing that we tried to do, Diana and I, along with staff, is truly show the community, to your point, Mr. Stingy, that this impact of 4 mills, it's still 4 mills, but here's what it looks like. And it was communicating truthfully, this is what it looks like. So.
Mr. Mayor, I just have one final question. On the attachment A to the ordinance, under capital equipment, it identifies $12,000, yet in the summary, we had 37. Is there a 25 we took out, or is some other capital not considered quote equipment? A. Under accommodations tax, we have the police Kubota, police cameras, but we're not including the cameras?
No, we are. You got it.
Oh, type of,
Okay.
okay.
2 air columns don't add up, so, okay.
Yeah,
You got
okay.
it.
I just want to make sure,
No, you got it.
because on the other piece of paper you gave me, it did say 37, so.
Should be good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to say one other thing about the millage increase is it's a slippery slope because it is not sustainable because everything does go up. So we will have to always come back and increase taxes. I mean, it's probably, I'm just saying. And the only other solution is to decide how to live within a budget and somehow trim the budget a little bit every year rather than increase it every year. And I know that's next to impossible, I do. But it's one of those things that it is not, this 4 mil is not going to be, just fix everything. It's going to, we're still kicking down the road a lot of people that we're not putting in this that aren't being funded.
Yes, sir.
So how are we going to fund them? And I just think that the citizens, I wish, would give more input. What are they comfortable with? Are they comfortable with not having quick response time? I don't think they are, but I would like to hear from them. And I don't. All I hear is, I don't want a tax increase. Well, tell me why you want to save the money then,
And Mr. Krakow, that's actually an excellent point. And I'll give a quick example here about the prudency that we tried to show in this budget. Sabrina, how much did you increase your budget? 0. None. So to your point, Mr. Krakow, we did look at that. I mean, we looked hard and because I can remember vividly going, you're not gonna increase your budget at all, you don't. But Sabrina looked at it and she said, I don't need it. I'm good. We're good.
And let me interrupt though, just on her budget. Just because she didn't have an increase, how is she getting her 5% pay increase then? I mean, did she trim it from somewhere else? Apparently she did. I'm just saying, and that's where our.
Well,
cost is,
that'll be the
personnel.
call. Yeah. Well, she would still, with the people that are there, would still get the 5% increase.
Right, but she kept her budget.
She did, because she had no exponential costs. I mean, when she looked at her budget, she prudently looked at it, where if you look at fire department, our costs are different. So we are not comparing apples to apples, but the point I'm trying to make is, to your point, that we do have to live within, we all live within a budget. So does the town, yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, this isn't a comment for you, but it's just some information. We act like it's just 20 cents a day. Well, I'm hearing it needs to be 6 mils. Then I'm hearing, well, heck, if that's the case, we might as well raise it to 10 mils. But you need to think about something, because 60% of America in the retirement system right now, each person on average across the United States makes $914 a month. A couple makes $1,371 a month on Social Security. That's straight off the web. I'm trying to figure out something. Everybody's going to be retired one day, and some of us are very fortunate, and some of us do have other income, other retirement stuff set up, and we thought about it. You got a career, you got a good retirement, but 60% right now, that's it, and it's going higher because people don't have as many good jobs or didn't make good decisions in their life. And they bought a house here in 1970. They bought a house here in 1980 or whatever, or earlier, or in the 60s. That's what they made. And most of those people in that age group aren't me, Bob, Laverne, Stamey, Miss Keaton, Mr. Kington, Miss Keating. I'm trying to look out for the little guy in this town. There might be one, it might be 10. They're not running around saying, oh, I'm barely getting by. But they've lived here their whole life, and I've heard some people, well, they need to move. No, they don't need to move. We need to look at other alternatives. The last alternative you should make is raise taxes. You got to look at cuts. You got to look at where are we missing some revenue? Where can we tweak something? That's why I brought the parking up. When I saw that figure, $500,000, I said, holy crap, they're doing good. And then when I look at it and I say, well, if you doubled it with just $2 more and put a sign that says we're raising the parking and it's $4 now, $2 of it goes to our fire department and our public works or public safety, and put the fire, police, and the public works truck all on there. Something, so when people come from Deerfield, when we were talking about charging for the parking, they were always complaining. Well, they see you come over there and put a house out for fire, and we're paying for the truck, we're paying for everything else. So let them pay $2 extra when they park in the golf cart or they park their car. And the visitors, they're gonna pay it. Ain't no question.
I think if that's the direction council.
But that solves our money problem right there. Just that one suggestion solves the money problem.
Well, I will make a comment, and the comment that I wanted to make is that the last time we raised taxes in this town was in 2019. Okay, and in 2020, we had the reassessment. We're gonna have a reassessment next year. So it's not gonna be an option to raise taxes next year. If we're gonna raise taxes, it needs to be today. We have been very fortunate over my tenure here as mayor at the fact that we've had a lot happen to us. We've had COVID. We've had all the things that have come down, and we've had some troubled times in this area, but we've always been able to work it out. Okay. We've had the American Rescue Plan, which has given us a total of $5 million over the last couple of years. We've had Russell Fry from the state on 2 different occasions has gotten us money for our pier. Once he gave us $1 million, the next he gave us $500,000. I mean, we've been very fortunate on the liquid money that's come out of the misfortune that the country has had. But we can all see that this is coming to an end. All right. Whenever you spend money, at the very end, you got to pay it back. And I think that we just need to adjust ourselves so that we're in the best position that we can. And I think that a millage rate, as long as it's acceptable, I don't think that the people that I've talked to that are residents don't really have a problem with a millage rate. It's just how much the millage rate is. And I think that it's time that we take care of everybody and do what we can to get it done, so.
Yeah, and Mayor, one other comment, and it went out of my head as you were talking. I meant to say this, Mr. Kraft, when you brought up your statement. And again, council has the ability to be able to look at those alternative revenue sources and make decisions on what that's gonna look like.
But if we're gonna do the parking, we need to do that on the off time
Well,
to get ready for the next one.
Why? It ain't even begun yet, other than,
There's people that have already made their plans to come down here.
and they're not gonna,
Well,
I wanted to just
be.
say something about Mr. Crapo. He had mentioned about the fire department and public safety in general, and he kind of alluded to this. At the end of the day, it really is, and I'm looking at council as I say this, because Rob Clemens is fire chief, I know what I need. Chief Hoffman knows what he needs, and we've expressed that, and you all are very gracious in listening. You may not agree with us all the time, but you do listen to us, and we do very much appreciate that, whether we get it or not. But it is about acceptable risk. If council in this community feels that 2 firefighters is acceptable, and they're willing to accept that risk, then it's 2 firefighters, and Chief Clemens and Deputy Chief Carter will continue to provide a high level. I mean, we're providing ALS service, paramedic service to this town with 2 firefighters. That goes to, that's the commitment that me, Chief Hoffman, the reorganization, I forget the title of the chief, I'm sorry, the community services officers. We're always thinking of ways to try to save money and to be able to raise a higher level with what we have. But at some point, we just can't do it anymore. We're at our max, and now it's just maintaining, and we're kind of hoping that acceptable risk was the right decision. So.
Mr. Mayor, Chief Clemens, believe me, I understand where you're coming from, but you're also standing up there trying to lay the blame on council.
No, sir, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No, sir, I'm not.
You sat right there just now and said, if we want to accept that risk, but it ain't that we want to accept that risk. We don't have the money. You know that. You've been over there. You know that we don't have the money to put in 3 new firefighters, a new person for John, a new person for HR, a new person here. We don't have the money. And it ain't that I would love to give it to you. If I had the money, I'd fund it my damn self, just to be honest with you. But I can't. And you and Chief and everybody else has got to realize we're trying to make the best decision for this town. It ain't that I want to sit up here and say, Chief Clemens, no, you can't have them 3 people. I'd love to give it to you. I'd love to give Kenny the 2 officers that he needs. I can't do it. And for you to sit there and say, well, if y'all want to accept that risk, we ain't doing it for the risk. We're doing it for the benefit of this town. I'm trying to get you 2 firefighters. I hope to God that on down the road a little bit, we can get you 2 more. But right at this time, this town can't afford it.
So Mr. Stamey, first of all, you are a huge supporter of public safety.
Yes, sir.
And I know that, and so is everybody up here. And I am absolutely not blaming council for the decisions that they make. Because I understand how hard the decisions are, and I understand that there's dollars associated with this. What I'm saying is that there is an acceptable risk by all decision makers on how the money is spent and what is funded, whether it's this position or that position or it's cut. Because Mr. Stamey, you and I talk all the time, and
Yes,
then
sir.
you'd give me $100 out of your pocket tomorrow if I asked you for it.
And if I thought you needed it, I'd give it to you.
So I'm not placing the blame. I am just making sure with the data and the numbers that I'm showing that council is informed. It's not about blaming council because every person behind me understands the hard job that you all have, or they'd be sitting up here if they thought it was easy. It's very, very difficult to do that. So it's not about assigning blame. It's the reality of the decisions that have to be made because someone is held accountable. I'm held accountable. Chief Hoffman's held accountable. Sabrina, we're all held accountable for the decisions that we make. In the SAFER grant, And the reason why I bring that up about the acceptable risk is the SAFER grant you all approved 4 positions, and we didn't get the SAFER grant unfortunately, which I can tell you, Mr. Steen, you and I've talked, we're gonna put in for another SAFER grant next year to try to help fund. So it's not about blaming, it is about, it is an acceptable risk. And I'm sorry if I came off that way. I did not mean that. But that is the reality of the conversation because of money, because of dollars, because of how the revenue comes in.
Mr. Mayor, the revenue, we've got 2 choices. We can raise it. I think you need them. I agree with you. But again, it's the money.
Sure, I understand.
We got an alternative in parking. You can label the other 2, put it right over there. She's tracking to 500 already. She told me 350 to 4, but I know Diana, she's sandbagging. So I think it's gonna be in the 5, but, that's the money we need. And we can do it. I mean, it's barely warm enough right now to get in the swimming pool, much less anything else. So,
I think now is not the time to speculate.
well, what's the difference?
We need to, make a decision and get stuff done. And if speculation can be done to improve us in the past, then we ought to work on it. But I think that, our budget needs to be taken care of at this point.
Well, you got the money with the budget. If you turn it and take the additional $2 on the parking.
Mr. Mayor, parking is not part of the general fund.
No,
It goes-
it's not.
it goes
I just said that.
elsewhere.
I just said that. You're gonna leave the 2 that's going there now, there, and you're gonna take the additional 2, makes 4. An additional 2, that money then will go to that. And that 2 would cover everything we're talking about, including the 169,000, including the 320.
I'd like to add something if I would, Mr. Mayor. I don't think we can get it accomplished before the budget is due. I really don't, because in order to change where some of the parking money goes, we also have to change the ordinance that says where the parking money goes. And that in itself.
We can have an emergency meeting anytime of the day. To protect the residents, I think it's worth it.
Well, let's put it this way. With that, I need a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept the first reading of this amendment for this budget with the amendments of a couple things in the budget to eliminate it down to 2 firefighters instead of 3, taking out the $100,000 for a forensic audit and with 4 wheels, with them 2 things eliminated from that, of this budget. Take out 2 people, it don't have to necessarily be the 2 of the fire people, it could be one of John's people and one of the fire departments. It don't matter to me how it's done, but that's what I'd like to make a motion for, the amendment to that.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second it just for discussion. Because I think if you take out the forensic audit and move one person, keep the 4 mil increase, take out the forensic audit and move one person to mid-year, we now have gotten rid of the 169,000. That's the
That
part.
was not the motion. If you're gonna second the motion, you need to
Okay, I
second the
second.
motion. Okay. Any discussion on it before we vote?
Now I'll talk about it. I would, I think there's another way to do it. And if we take out the forensic audit, reduce one person to mid-year, we have taken away the $169,000, which I find unacceptable. Keep the 4 mil and so maybe I need to make a motion to amend.
That's not the motion. We need to.
You can amend the motion.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to amend the motion take the ordinance as presented with 4 mills, reduce one person, move one person to mid-year, let the staff decide which person, and remove the forensic audit. That way we won't have to spend $169,000 out of savings.
Do I have a second on that?
Mr. Mayor, I got another motion.
Oh, wait a minute, we're not done yet.
You want to get something to make some money?
The amended motion failed without a second. Let's go back to the first motion. And is there any more discussion on it before we vote?
Can we restate the motion, if I understand it?
You second.
This is, yes, you did.
I did.
You need to,
Let's go with
Sherry,
that.
and you.
I'd like it read again.
I'm gonna try.
Okay.
It's to allow for 2 firefighters. It's to remove the forensic audit, and it's for a 4 millage increase. Am I correct?
And one public works, I will eliminate 2 people and the forensic audit. The 2
2
people.
firefighters, you said.
Yeah, and then we have one for public works, a full-time person. We'll eliminate
Oh, I
that.
didn't hear the public works.
Yes.
Okay, I'm
For the
sorry.
2 people.
That's 3 people.
Public Works and one
Just one.
firefighter.
Well,
One
reduce
firefighter.
firefighters by one.
Reduce firefighter from one, just 2 firefighter, one firefighter
Okay,
and one public works.
okay. All right. My apologies.
Sorry, I was probably
So
wasn't clear about that.
that's one firefighter, one public works, and a forensic audit.
Yes,
You want to reduce on.
Yes, sir.
You want more?
With a 4 millage
With the 4
increase.
mills part of it already.
All right, Sherry?
Mr. Drake,
No.
Mrs. Keating,
No,
Mr. Kinkin,
Yes.
Mr. Krecklau,
No.
Mr. Stamey,
Yes.
Mayor Hellier.
No. That motion failed.
Failed.
So, do we have another motion in reference to the budget?
I'll make a motion that we do not increase the millage, that we do hire the firefighters, we do hire John's additional person, and we do fund the forensic audit. By immediately, we can get together tomorrow and we'll have a meeting, emergency meeting, and we can change the ordinance on the parking. $2 goes straight to where it's been going for the buildings and land purchases. And $2 of it will go towards public work and public safety, whatever you want to call it. And that will cover the part that you wanted to reach out to the taxpayers on.
Do we have a second on that? That motion failed.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that
Go ahead, it's your turn.
we accept the first reading of ordinance 23-0956, an ordinance of the town of Surfside to adopt the 2023-24 fiscal year municipal budget and to raise the tax millage rate by 4 mills. I'm just doing this basically to see if we can't get a vote.
Do we have a second on that? I'll second that. So, is there any discussion on it?
Thank you, and the motion again.
just accept it as is.
Oh, okay.
Sherry?
Mr. Drake,
No.
Mrs. Keating,
No,
Mr. Kinkin,
Yes.
Mr. Krecklau,
Yes.
Mr. Stamey,
No.
Mayor Hellier.
Yes. Fails. So that
Aye,
fails.
so failed.
Failed, yeah.
failed 3-3. Mr. Mayor, may I make a recommendation? I'm not making a motion. make a recommendation that some of the comments and some of the inconsistencies that have been identified tonight are reconciled. And Diana has a final version of the budget. You know, as soon as possible, we convene a special meeting to revisit first reading. And hopefully that draft of the budget, finalization of the budget will pass first reading, and we can still support second reading before the end of next month.
Do I have a second on that?
It wasn't a
It
motion,
wasn't-
it
it wasn't
was
a
just a
motion.
recommendation of how to proceed
Yes.
forward.
Can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
The thing to keep in mind is, I'm not gonna tell you we don't have any money, because you know that would be lying.
That's
We
right.
do.
That's right.
But we have that money for one reason, and when that reason is done, then we can spend it. And that would be finishing that pier. Because we don't know what's gonna happen. And when we finish the pier, the money from local accommodations has been going to pay for the pier. It can go to pay for firefighters, for policemen, for salaries, that's what it's for. But we have been using it to pay for the pier. So if we can get that pier done and get it up and running and, you know, so a lot of things will change by December or January, would be my guess. So it's just something for you to think about. I think we should just kind of push things down. I hate kicking the can, that's not my style. But maybe something to think about. We could move any of those things that you're talking about, the firefighters, the forensic, whatever, kick them to January, when you know more of where we are. Our also problem is then we know where the summer comes, because we don't know. We assume the tourists are coming, and I'm sure they are. But will we get us more than last year, less than last year, the same as last year? It's just the dynamic of living in the tourist area. Just something to think about. And parking, if we can look into it, I mean, we could do it for next year, you'd get March, April, May, and June next year's budget, in the same budget. I mean, it's just something we could look into and have a little bit more information, but that's just my 2 cents.
Mr. Mayor, so Diane, don't we need to go ahead and get something done to this budget now? And we're not, seems to none of us is going to agree on exactly what's here.
That is, you have to have a balanced budget, and you do have a balanced budget,
Yep, by removing $169,000 out of the fund that,
but that's on paper. Remember, that's on paper.
I realize that, but if it's here and I'm looking at it, it's supposed to be facts, you know? And I'm looking at it as, we got this $169,000 that we're removing from somewhere else to pay Paul now. And then where we can go ahead, if we go ahead and do away with this forensic audit right now, and do away with one other person, we can fund the rest of it with the 4 millage increase. I would go for something like that, but I'm assuming we can redo this thing for mid-year. If we need to go back and add people or take away people or whatever you have to do in mid-year, we don't have to do it right this day. We don't have to add all these people in. We don't have to add this forensic audit in.
Those are all possibilities. You can
Yes.
take 100 out, you can kick the person later, you can kick a lot of the people later. We can look at whether any of the revenues of what we know now is different than what we knew in March. Because don't forget, we start this in December. And I mean, things change. I mean, there might be something we can find. Mrs. Keating has a few things I guess I can look at. I mean, there are some things we can do.
And see if we would do this $100,000 and one person. We want to have a balanced budget with the 4 millage increase, or you'll get very close. A whole lot closer than you are right now.
Mr. Mayor, we have taken a vote. It failed. It's for another time
Yeah.
to have this discussion. I think, let's just move on to the next. That's just my suggestion.
I guess let's see. No, that's fine. Tell me when, because I'm trying to do.
But
So, Mr. Town Administrator, what's your recommendation? Real quiet during this whole thing.
He's thinking, what, the help step in?
But we should involved in what we have, so.
Well, the thing is, I've got notes on all of our meetings with those.
Is that good or bad?
It's all good. I've taken notes, meeting with the board members the last 7 days. And so I knew going into this meeting, it was going to be a tough reading on this budget to get it approved. Because I've heard all your comments and your concerns. I do like what Diana just said, and I don't like doing this either, but there could be some funds that could go towards paying for these salary increases. Perhaps, say, October, and maybe not December, depends on when that period is finished. So maybe the recommendation on these salaries is for 12 months. And we know we're not gonna hire somebody for the first day of July. So there's gonna be some cost savings there. Chief Clemens probably can't hire somebody until maybe October. So there's 25% right there of cost savings. If we do perhaps kick it down the road to October, there's a possibility to fund all these positions
Without a tax increase.
without a tax.
Voila, it's amazing.
The reason I finished, I don't like not raising the millage is that for the next 2 fiscal years, we cannot, because of the assessment.
Exactly.
That's the only issue there.
You have to decide whether you want to raise it. You have to at least do this for now.
You have to raise the 4 mils to get to where
So
you're
you're
at
saying
now.
there's not enough?
I don't think I can find that. If I could find
Okay,
maybe 100 or 200, up to 200, I could probably find,
then I
but I don't think,
misunderstood.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. I mean, we could kick,
Well, then you don't need it, then you won't, then you're not gonna need as high as number on the parking increase then, will you? You said you could find 200 and then you gotta find another 200 in the parking.
Depends on what we look. We could raise some of, we haven't raised any fees. I mean, that's one of the things. One of the things that probably needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
Next year to do, we gotta raise fees if you're not gonna raise taxes. That's
Right.
probably the next offset.
That's revenue.
And you do have the forensic audit, which is over $1 million right there.
Never been done.
I have to say something real quick about the forensic audit that, everybody's been talking about a forensic audit for the last 4 years. When the town administrator, Bill Shanahan, was appointed, he requested a forensic audit and it went before council and they turned it down. Okay. It's normal that a new town administrator should have an audit to make sure that when he comes in, he's taken on a clean slate. We knew that was the case and the council voted to do the audit. So, that's why it's there. And, I'm still for that, if for nothing else, but to clear everybody from any wrongdoing. So I am personally against doing away with the forensic audit, but here again, we have some adjustments to make in order to get our budget moved through. I'm not exactly sure, and we've seen tonight that we don't all agree on this. So I'm not exactly sure how we're gonna come to an adequate conclusion on it at this point.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, and what, if the direction we gave them or given tonight, we're not telling them to do anything except later on bring it back to us again for the same thing that we're looking at again tonight. I mean, and if we're just kicking the can on down the road because they've done presented this to us before. And now we're kicking it down the road again with the same thing. What are they gonna do? Bring it back to us? If we have a special meeting 24 hours from now, they're gonna bring us the same budget back.
We need to make a
And
decision.
something's gotta be changed to make everybody or enough people on this panel to agree to. And it needs to be, I know that some people wants to go ahead and move it on down, but we cannot give them no direction of how to get to do anything different. we sat here and talked about it. Some of us have made motions to try to solve some of this problem, but we can't come to agreement. So Ms. Diane and the new administrator has no idea what to do to help solve this.
Mr. Mayor, since we're basically not following rules of order, I want to say one more thing. I think that we need to have another, not an emergency session, but another session of council before the next regularly scheduled session to hash out our differences on this budget, because we're basically not getting anywhere tonight, in my opinion, and I think we need to, but I think we could sit down and probably give Diana a clear direction, maybe after another session. I don't know, I'm hopeful, but.
Would be helpful.
I mean, we haven't got anywhere tonight with it, that's for sure. That's all I have.
So do we want to set a date and time for this?
I'm trying to digest. And I'm sorry, only because we, all of us been working on this since December. So is it prudent to maybe have another work session? We don't need an emergency work session. We need a work session before the next council meeting. And to give Diana some time too, because I'm hearing all this, Ms. Keating is right, there's some questions that she wants answered. So is Mr. Stamey, that some of it's going to be the same. I mean, some of it's going to be the same. But obviously there is an appetite for a reduction in people, the firefighters, and what that looks like, what those costs are associated with that, because we can get close, but what does that actually look like? Do we want to have a discussion, and I can't believe this is going to come out of my mouth, but I'm listening to it. Do we want to look at potentially pushing this to mid-year, October timeframe, and seeing what it looks like? I don't think that's a prudent way to go, because I do think you need a millage increase. It is
You
the
still have to
prudent
pay
thing
for
to do.
next year.
And then you still have to pay for next year. So, I think there's no right answer here. The answer is staff going to give you enough information for this council to make a decision on approving the FY 23-24 budget? And then potentially put a bucket over here for alternative or other revenue sources like parking or whatever that might be for future discussion. So it's recorded and council has a direction to potentially go, because obviously tonight, we're not going to.
Do we want to set a date right now? We know it's going to have to be before the next council meeting.
I honestly think that we let the town clerk let Sherry work and see what that looks like, if that's okay, certainly
That's
Mr.
fine.
Benson. But I do think you're gonna see some of the same stuff. I mean, there's going to be some of the same things, but we could update that to show what that would look like with the number decreases and all that. And then also show what would it look like if it got moved to, like Mr. Vincent said, maybe October, because the year's done. But the needs are still there, and you all know that. I mean, you all have said that. You've articulated that you understand the needs are there, and staff is very appreciative of that, so is the community. It's not like we don't know that you all know the needs are there. It is paying for it. So it's just how do we get to where it gets approved?
Absolutely.
Mr. Mayor, the forensic audit without a scope is just a figure. We don't know what it's gonna cost because we don't have a scope. So let's not argue about that, just move it. Move it to December. Whenever we get a scope, then we can go out and get a quote on it. But it's just a number. And I feel like it should not be part of our budget now because we don't have that information.
That's exactly what was voted on and requested last October.
Well, we still don't have a scope. And I'm not one to write a scope on anything. But that seems to be one of the sticking points in the millage, and the number of people. So let's eliminate one of the three.
Yeah. So Sherry, you'll get that together and get a meeting together?
Okay.
Can I ask Diana a question?
Absolutely.
Let's say we would do a forensic audit that the scope was this last fiscal year. Would we have to do our normal audit then also?
Yes, they're two different things. A forensic audit is to send somebody to jail for doing a criminal act.
But
That's what a
But
forensic
can't
audit
we
is.
combine the two?
But what's the act that you want them to look into that you think would send
I have
someone to jail?
I have no
But I
idea.
don't think you can do that. You could, what I would suggest you do is, for Mr. Benson, is have your regular audit and just make it more intensified, or whatever, that's not right. I'm not right.
That's
But you need to have a more in-depth audit of this year.
That's more or less what I'm
But I
saying.
think that's what you want to do, is you're gonna show whether you're weak with not having enough people for controls, because finance is in a bad way. We don't have enough controls for people, we don't. So, I mean, it's gonna show you that.
But that's the point we made last October, that staff did not follow through with. We had a vote of council that passed the vote that said we would go out with requests for proposals, go out to the subject matter experts and ask them to propose what would be a prudent fiscal audit for our town. And at that time, we would evaluate that scope versus the price. Do we want to proceed forward? Do we want to change it? What do we want to do? But the whole point of the October request was to go out and get those proposals from the subject matter experts. And those are the forensic auditors themselves. We had 3 or 4 different auditors recommended to us from the county and other areas around the Grand Strand that said, these are who I would go to. We've got county departments that do forensic audits every year as a matter of course. So, there was a lot of recommendations and a lot of credibility added to, here's the approach you can take to get the information you need to make that final decision. Unfortunately, no one wanted to follow through on that vote of council. And that's an unacceptable behavior by the staff of this town.
Okay, so Sherry, you'll make the,
Yes, sir.
put the meeting together. And with that, we'll move on. Next thing on the agenda is public comments, and these are public comments relating to town services or business conducted. Good evening.
Ann Westcott, Fifth and Cedar North. And it's been my experience in life that you get what you pay for.
Thank
I
you.
forgot to.
That's okay.
It's been my experience in life that you get what you pay for. If you want to live in a safe community, you have to pay for it. And I want to live in a safe community. Our police department has gone out of their way for me more than once. And I came from Philadelphia, where not only do you not count on the police to protect you, you run when they came your direction. So as far as raising the millage, if we have to do it, we have to do it. Inflation is high, it's not gonna stop, it's not gonna go lower. There's nothing you can do about it, and if we get stopped next year when we can't raise it, what are we gonna do? We can't go into deficit spending. We're not the Federal Reserve, we can't print the money. As far as, I know it's not popular to raise millage rates, but we just gotta bite the bullet and do what we gotta do.
I did.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Lynn Manchester, 1414 B North Ocean Boulevard. Do any of y'all live on Ocean Boulevard? Let me tell you, every day I see the truck. Sometimes it's 2 o'clock in the morning, sometimes it's in the afternoon, and I see those 2 guys struggling because the alarm is going off at Surfwatch 3 or any of those condos across there, and they are doing everything they can to get to that unit. But you hear the alarm going off, here they are trying to work. I certainly think that increasing the millage, I have no problem with that. I totally support it. I totally support your idea, Michael, about adding $2, because I promise you, when these tourists come, they don't care. They want to go to the beach, they want to get out here and have fun and eat and do all that. They don't care what it costs to park, they're down here on vacation. I think those two things would be great. Chief Hoffman, he is just like my Superman. Where else can you live and you have to be out of town because of family illness? And he says, oh, I'll go by and check your house. I never worry. That is a really unique thing. We have so much good in this town. And it breaks my heart, all the fussing and the bad stuff that's being said, because they're wonderful. John, I call and say, my trash can got drug all the way across the street, torn up, got holes in my, just like that, you do a trash can. Sabrina, I know she's gonna block my number one day, but you know, you call, and buddy like that, you have somebody out there. You gotta have people to staff these positions that you can trust, for one thing. This town is amazing. And I just wish we would start looking at the good instead of some of these little ugly things that are being said. And again, just my personal opinion, I have no problem with the tax increase, and I love Michael's idea, because that would be good revenue. I see them parking all the time on that little beach exit. Thank you. And y'all know I love this town.
Harry Coleman, 10th Avenue. I also like to talk about the parking. If you raise it to $4, that would be great if the tourists were paying that. The problem is, in this community, most of the tourists are either staying in beach houses, which are 2 blocks away, furthest 2 blocks away from the beach, and/or in the hotels on the beach. We have one hotel that's on 17. So who's paying to park? The people who are paying to park are from Carroll Pines and Deerfield and Surfside Beach Club. Well, that's where they're, and those people, believe me, don't like paying $2. They're not gonna pay $4. I get it. Tourists come, they're here for a week, they don't mind spending a couple extra bucks. But that's not the people who are parking. The people who are parking are people who are full-time residents. If you want to get some more money though from parking, I'll tell you what you do. And I was very disturbed to see this on the town website. Vivid Parking is enforcing parking violations throughout the town. Well, you might say, well, that's a great idea. Well, it's a terrible idea. We need them down by the rental area, down by the beach, where people who are paying to park are violating the laws. Now, I'm not saying that the full-time residents in this town don't legally park once in a while. But if it was a very, very big concern, the police department will be writing them all the time, and it's not happening. So we have, if it's true, what we're doing is having pivot up in the residential area, what a waste of time. Because now we don't have people enforcing the parking rules where they pay. Doesn't make sense. And also, a big thing was a change this year we went to on app. Now, a lot of people don't understand it. And the reason was going to be, Pivot was going to be there by the beach to help people pay on the app. Well, if they're up here, they're not down there. So whoever's idea, and I know somebody was pushing it because he mentioned it to me, why doesn't Pivot do the whole thing? Well, you're only getting a $20 ticket once in a while. Instead, you're losing revenue. Because if somebody's on their app and they can't get the parking after work, they sit there, well, then they're gonna say, I'm not coming back to Surfside Beach. I can't figure out how to get to the beach. So, bad idea, Pivot parking in a residential area, put them back on the beach if they're up here, and let them be out there. You know, if they're gonna take a break or something, let them take a break in your pond or in the pier parking lot. They're out in the woods sometimes, out in the weeds. So that's what their job is. I know it's in the contract, they're supposed to do the whole town, but it's ridiculous. Thank you.
Anybody else? Good evening.
Gary White, 315 315B Lakeside Drive. I'm just curious, and I just, when we went through the whole thing we're talking about, we ended up $169,000 short. So we're talking about increasing, what do? We do things in parking, everything you're talking about, do we change it and make, I'm not sure what $169,000 is in a mill. What are we talking about? 2 mills? So instead of, so it would be, instead of 4 mills, it would be 6 mills. So I think we should consider that and get it over with. Or to do what you spent a lot of time doing all this. And went the week, day after day. So now's the time to bite the bullet, raise the mills, and let's move on.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Okay, well, since we're probably going to have an executive session this evening, now we'll do the town council discussion. And we'll start out with Mr.
Let me start out with saying thanks to the fire department and them and the police department for y'all's great work and the tender of 10 years here. And you guy on here, that's great. I'm glad to see that you work. And I'm gonna tell everyone that I've struggled with this millage increase and the way we're gonna handle it. I don't want it. I live here in town and I don't have to pay it just like everybody else. But I see that we're gonna have to have it. It don't matter how you look at it. You're gonna have to do it. I would love to hear more comments from the public like we've heard tonight. They're good comments, believe me, I listen to them. I listen really hard and I try to take it all in. But overall, we as a council person has got to do what the best interest of the town is. If it's holding off 6 months for this person or holding off 6 months for that person, we've got to consider that's what we need to do. We need to look at it and adjust what we need to adjust. It ain't that I wouldn't love to give everybody what they want. It don't work out that way sometimes. Saying that, I'm glad everybody came tonight. We'll get it. We'll come up with something. We're saying that, I hope to see you in a couple weeks. Thanks.
Mr. Drake.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and tuning in. Not trying to beat a dead horse, but we've got to keep an open mind on the millage increase. I'm for the firefighters. I think, yes, you need 3 going out, no question. Again, it's back to funding. And I think we've got other alternatives that we're not thinking of, and it's something we need to think of in the parking. And I think that if we do that, it eliminates the millage. But back to some of the things in town going on. We got the golf cart parade for Memorial Day. It's going to be on the 29th at 10 a.m. Encourage everybody to come out and have a good time. It's not about that much money. I mean, Kenny's got a couple of police officers, one police officer leading the parade. Don't see the fire department really. I may see y'all walking in it, you and Kenny that time, but I don't think we're spending really that much money. John's out there hitting some trash cans. But we're representing the family beach. And if we're gonna make it a fun place, that's where people wanna be. So we gotta think about that. And I'd like to say happy birthday to South Carolina, May 23rd, 1788. South Carolina became a state. So kind of goes back a ways. But again, I'd like to thank everybody, and hopefully we can come together on the budget. We can do something. But we got to look at other alternatives, I feel like. And that's about it. We'll see.
Ms. Keating.
thanks everybody for coming out and for all the comments and perspectives. Budget time is always a difficult time to push through. It's not a matter of, at least in my opinion, it's not always just a matter of the numbers, but, you know, making sure it's accurate. You know, we had the original proposed budget in March, and it showed a deficit of a little over $1 million. And at that time, you know, we were talking in our working session that, well, you know, maybe at this time we can't afford to put 15 new heads in the budget, and that's why we requested certain things to be backed down a little bit. The second draft of the budget in April showed, you know, we got it down and moving some things around. Maybe there's a few things that we actually can compensate by hospitality tax and, you know, move around a little bit. And we got it down to a deficit of like 391,000 or something like that, I believe. So, you know, each time we got closer to the end game, if you just look at the end game, but when you challenge how you get there, you know, you want those things to be consistent and obvious. That, you know, like I was saying, if we're reducing headcount, I expect to see at least a department reduction of what equivalent to that headcount was. Or at least maybe an explanation of why it's different. You know, we took that down, but we had to add this in because we forgot it or something. You know, and that's where I come from. If the numbers don't reflect what we've requested to have done, and we move things around that I can't justify, I get to the point that we're not being transparent about what we're asking for. I don't have a problem with raising the millage if I know why we have to do it. If we're selling the reason for the headcounts for valid reasons, we've got, you know, Kenny has tripled his call volume. You know, yeah, we need more first responders so that when we go to a fire, either within town or at our neighbors, that we can start to take action and we don't have to wait 15, 20 minutes to actually start addressing the incident. So there are valid reasons that maybe a tax millage is just unavoidable at this time. But at the same time, I expect to see the rest of the budget flowing and matching and following with everything that was requested. And, you know, I think, in my opinion, I think if we go back and readdress some of the, I'll call them discrepancies, and they're probably just me not understanding fully what is behind each and every calculation. But if we go back and we justify those and republish the numbers to say this is it, I would hope to see that, you know, you'll probably find a council that can pass a balanced budget. So with that, I'm not going to belabor it any longer. It's already getting late. So stay healthy, stay safe. We will see you in a couple weeks, if not before.
Mr. Kinky.
Good evening. Glad to see people here, and I hope a lot of people tuned in. Lieutenant Houck, I welcome you to the city. I know you're going to be a valuable member. And Larry, congratulations on your 10 years, and I hope you have at least another 10. It's been wonderful having you all here. The budget is an issue. I have a hard time with the negative number. And if you're pulling out of savings to meet everyday budget, and it's not a one-time expenditure, I have a problem with that. And that's why I said, let's get rid of the audit and move one person to later in the year and see how it turns out. That to me would get rid of the 169. And that's the part that I don't agree with. The four mills, you know, in last year, we got a real nice boost in the value of the properties in town. Well, unfortunately, this year it was all eaten up by inflation. So what we would gain this year is gone because of inflation. And I don't see a way around not raising our millage so that we're covered this year and next year. And then the following year, we have to look at it again. whatever we do this year, we're stuck with for next year. So I don't see how we can not increase the millage. And anyway, I don't want to beat it to death. We live in a great town, and I think we're all here for the same reason, because it is such a great town, and our first responders are part of what makes it great. Public Works, what makes it great. We get a lot of comments. My sister was up and she's just amazed at how clean this town is. And I've said it before, we have one of the cleanest organized towns in anywhere I've been. And just, our staff just does a great job. And I'm talking about all the staff. So we're very fortunate to be here. And with that, I wish you all a good night and hope to see you in 2 weeks.
Mr. Kirklaw.
Well, first I'd like to say thanks to everyone that tuned in and came out. I would like to thank all the town employees at this time, especially all the department heads that have went through this budget time and time again and justified the expenses that we're asked to fund. And with that, I'd like to say that the tax increase, or the millage increase, it is a slippery slope, because if you have X amount of people, their wages are always going to go up, the expenses to have the people are going to go up. And at some point, yes, you do have to raise taxes. And it does appear that this may be that point in time. But I moved here from a town in central Iowa, as a suburb of Des Moines. I paid, I believe, around $500 a month in taxes. I just barely pay more than that for a year here. So one of the reasons I moved here, though, was the beach and the low taxes. And I enjoy the low taxes. My Social Security does not go up that much, and I don't want to have to pay more, but it's not that much more. That's not a big argument. I won't belabor the point right now either. We're going to have more discussions on it. I would like to also say something about what Mr. Coleman brought up with pivot parking, as far as them patrolling the whole town, and he said it was in the contract. I have read and reread that contract. It does not really give a scope of what they take care of, other than the fact of what they're directed to take care of. So I guess my question is, I know I, as a council member, was not asked what do I want to direct them to do. So was it the administrator? Was it the mayor? Was it someone had to have directed it? Well, it's an increased cost. Maybe it's an increased benefit too, because they're writing more tickets. I don't know, but I'm with Mr. Coleman. I believe that the fact that they're being spread around the town and there's only 2 of them, it's taking away from their main purpose of making sure the beach parking is being paid for and being orderly conducted. With that being said, good night, and I'll see you next time.
Well, you can see on council, there's a lot of diversity here, and there's a lot of people that have different opinions on what needs to be done. And I think that's good. But at the same time, we need to come to an adequate conclusion on what we're going to do on the budget. We're going to get that done in the next week or 2. Keep in mind, we've got a lot going on this weekend or next weekend with the Memorial Day and the ceremonies that we have. We have the golf cart parade. We have Mr. Turek, in case I don't know if you guys remember him, but he's the one that talked last year at our memorial service. He's, I think, 94 years old and a great guy. So I look forward to seeing him again. He'll be our guest speaker at the memorial service. Last week, we had a presentation that was given by the peer committee. And the peer committee had a lot of objections on the way that they were treated and stuff like that. So we talked about it in an executive session, and we basically asked the town attorney if he would draft something up. And I want to read this to you guys. It says, "The town of Surfside Beach, through its council, mayor, and various departments, heads in a constant and ongoing process of exploring new and or better ways to deliver public services and overall improve the quality of life of our residents and visitors. As part of that process, the town frequently engages members of the public who are willing to serve on committees sponsored by the town. These committees ask their members to contribute their time and energy and explore and evaluate possible options for the mayor and council to consider and ultimately make recommendations based on their research and evaluation. The service of the citizens who serve on these committees is to be commended, and the mayor and members of council want to thank all those who have given of themselves to make this town better. However, these committees and their members should be reminded that they serve at the pleasure of the town. Though council and the mayor welcome the ideas and recommendations of the committee and their various members, their purpose is solely to help the mayor and members of council make decisions, which requires consideration of additional issues beyond the mandate of the committees. At the recent council meeting, members of the peer committee appeared ostensibly as members of the public to comment in the forum portion of the meeting. Unfortunately, their appearance was not as a general member of the public, but instead as members of the committee seeking to voice their grievances against the town and town administrator. Since this is a portion of the meeting designated for public comment, these individuals knew that they would be able to air their grievances in view of the public and not be challenged, corrected, or confronted with further context. As such, it is clear that this is a coordinated effort to simply attempt to embarrass the town, council, and the town administrator. Actions such as these will not be tolerated. The process of evaluating issues and making recommendations to council should be followed through proper channels outlined and mandated of the committee. Though any member of the public is free to speak at council meeting during appropriate times, the town council will exercise its discretion to disband and terminate any committee whose members seek to circumvent the committee process to further their own agenda. This town really appreciates people that work on committees and do a good job and help us improve the quality of life for the residents. So with that, in an executive session tonight, we're going to talk about committees in general and things like that. But we're always out to improve the services to the residents of our town. And that's what council and mayor, we do, is we provide input and try to make this town a better place to live. So with that, I need a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to enter executive session pursuant to section 30-470A1 to discuss potential appointments to committees. And in addition, section 30-4-70A2 to discuss potential negotiations for a proposed contractual arrangement.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned to go into executive session. We will be back from executive session